Have you decided to use no contact with a narcissistic person in your life? Are you confused about what the purpose of no contact is and how to make it work for you? My name's Ruth Ann. I'm a clinical psychologist. I'm an expert in relationships and issues of narcissism. In this video, I'm going to talk about what no contact is, what the purpose of it is, and how to make it work for you. I'll also talk about what you can do if no contact isn't a possibility for you. So no contact is basically what it says on the tin. It is having no contact, so no phone calls, no emails, no messages, no contact via social media with a narcissistic person. It's essentially cutting them off and cutting them out of your life. If you are in a position to do that with a narcissistic person, that can be incredibly helpful because it gives you the opportunity to make space for yourself, to get away from them, and to begin to recover from any abusive experiences that you've had, and to begin to invest in your own life goals and the things that are important to you and in other relationships and friendships. If it is not possible, and it isn't possible for everyone. So for example, you might have to share parenting responsibilities with a narcissistic ex-partner, or you may have a narcissistic family member like a parent or a sibling or someone in your friendship group or someone in your work. And having zero contact is either not possible or it's not desirable to you because it would also mean potentially cutting out other important people to you. And if that's the situation you're in, you might want to consider some other strategies. So other strategies that survivors refer to that can be quite helpful is something called gray rock, which is basically a kind of approach of non-responsiveness. You don't show emotions, you don't respond in depth, you kind of keep your responses brief, bland, and boring like a gray rock. And yellow rock is basically gray rock, but with a smile and a few more pleasantries. There are lots of videos about gray rocking, yellow rocking, no contact on social media. And there's other ways to manage a narcissistic person in your life as well. So have a look, have a think about what strategies might be helpful for you. But I want you to understand the underlying function of these strategies, what they're seeking to do. Ultimately, the aim of all of these strategies is about breaking the strength of connection between you and a narcissistic person. It's about breaking the emotional attachment and the emotional bond, what some people call a trauma bond, between you and a narcissistic person. And that concept comes from developmental psychology. So when children are small, when babies are born, they form an emotional attachment to their caregiver. Theory is basically that if a parent is reasonably consistent and good enough, the child forms a healthy, secure relationship with the parent. They rely on the parent. They're happy to go explore and do other things. And they are also comfortable to go back to the parent and seek support as and when they need it. And that's basically the foundation of a healthy relationship. Now, if a parent isn't reliable and consistent, the child may develop what's known as an anxious attachment. They may develop an anxious preoccupied attachment where they really crave and want closeness. They're fearful of abandonment. They become clingy. They become very distressed in any absence or if there's any challenges in the relationship with the parent. And those are children who are really very anxious and want closeness with their parent. The other form of anxious attachment is what's known as an anxious avoidant attachment, which is someone who fears closeness, who fears intimacy, who wants hyper-autonomy, who pushes people away and tries to keep them at a distance. Now, attachment theory suggests that these early relationships become the blueprints for future relationships in your life. So whatever experience you've had as a child gets carried over into your friendships and into your relationships with colleagues and particularly into your close romantic relationships. Now, research would actually suggest that our attachment style may not be quite so stable. So over a period of 4 years, up to about 30% of adults will change their attachment style. They may become more secure or they may become more anxious. They could become more anxious preoccupied and clingy and wanting deeper connections, or they may become more anxious avoidant and rejecting of closeness and intimacy. A relationship with a highly narcissistic person could have a profound effect on your attachment style. Narcissistic people are highly unreliable. At the start of a relationship, they want to be very close. They will make big promises. They'll make big, bold declarations of love. They can make you feel very, very special and loved and cherished and close. And that can really suck you in. But later on, they become rejecting. They push you away. They withdraw. They may stonewall and ice you out, giving you the silent treatment. They may lie to you, cheat to you, make you question your reality, leave you feeling very uncertain and insecure in yourself and very confused about what's going on. This person who you love and feel immense attachment to has the capacity to generate enormous anxiety by abandoning you, rejecting you, and criticizing you. And so just like a little child who feels abandoned by their parent, you are going to want to reconnect with this person. What is going to make you feel better, what's going to soothe you and soothe your anxiety is reconnection with the narcissistic person. Now, basically, this is a healthy relationship pattern that goes very wrong in narcissistic relationships. So in a healthy relationship, if there's a rupture, if you sense your partner is distant, if you have an argument about something, if you have a disagreement, then it doesn't feel good to have friction in a relationship with someone you're very close to. And so we're driven to reconnect, we're driven to repair, and we're driven to feel better when we're able to make that repair and reconnect. And in a healthy relationship, hopefully that looks like both people being able to share their perspective, have empathy for each other, apologize for their contribution to whatever the rupture has been, gain more understanding and more appreciation, and get closer together. It's a very healthy process that is good for relationships. But a narcissistic person doesn't do their side of the repair. What happens is you have this brief period of reconnection. You may return to some love bombing behaviors. You feel temporarily better. The narcissistic person may need to do that, may need to kind of give you a kind of half-hearted apology and tell you that things are going to be different, and they make big false promises. And then you feel better, you feel soothed. What a relief. And then boom, it's back to rejection, stonewalling, criticism, lying, cheating, gaslighting behaviors. And then you're left disconnected, lonely, desperate, anxious, and longing for reconnection. The goal of no contact or gray rock or yellow rock or any other strategy is about breaking that connection that you have with a narcissistic person. So the goal is to free you from that never-ending roller coaster of reconnection, feeling temporarily better, then the return to rejection, stonewalling, criticism, and gaslighting that inevitably happens in these relationships on never-ending repeat. Often when people start to do this, they will ask me, so how is the narcissistic person feeling? Do they feel punished by this? Does it help them see what they're doing wrong? Does this make them want me more? Will this make them apologize and realize how much they've hurt me? And the answer to that is, well, no, probably not. Although it may make them come back to you because they're going to sense that they're losing control. And so they may well be driven to try to get you back at that point. What's really important is that you understand that no contact or gray rock or yellow rock or whatever you're doing isn't about the narcissistic person. It's not about punishing them. It's not about the effect it has on them. That's irrelevant to you. I want you to see that as almost none of your business. Actually, what this is about is you. It's about freeing you from that connection that's not serving your emotional needs in any way, shape, or form. So when you do no contact, you need to understand you're going to have time and energy and resources that you previously put into the narcissistic relationship. And that can be quite overwhelming for a lot of survivors of narcissistic abuse because it feels kind of empty and kind of you feel lost. Like, who am I anymore? Do I even know myself? What am I going to do with myself? So it can feel quite overwhelming and confusing to suddenly have lots of time. It can also be a time when you start to feel big feelings about the abuse that you've been through. You might start to really grieve the time that you've spent in a narcissistic relationship. You may start to feel very angry or resentful of all the things that you've been through, and those can be very painful emotions. You may feel very anxious about your future and how you're going to rebuild your life, particularly if this has been a relationship that's been very important to you, such as with a partner or a parent. So understanding and anticipating that that's likely to happen is really very important. And what you can also do is think about, how do you want to use this time? How do you want to use this space for you in your interests? And it may be that you need to start very, very small. It may be just putting one foot in front of the other and doing the next thing that needs to be done. It might just be establishing a good sleep routine, establishing a good eating routine, just getting to work every day, just getting the daily activities that you need to do done. And that's okay. That's where you need to start. That's absolutely fine. It may also be beginning to explore your interests, taking up hobbies, maybe things that you've always wanted to do, or new things that come your way, or things that you've stopped doing because you've been in this relationship that's taken over your life. So it may be connecting or reconnecting with hobbies and interests and life goals. It may also be investing in friendships and relationships that are good for you, giving those people time. Narcissistic people are highly, highly demanding. Healthy people are not. A healthy relationship, healthy friendships do not excessively put on you. And so you may need to be quite intentional to send out invitations to people who may be on the periphery of your life, to see if they would like to get to know you better, and to give you the opportunity to get to know them better, and to form some other kinds of friendships and relationships that better serve your emotional needs. This is difficult. It sounds easy and it sounds great in theory, but it's really, really difficult, because what you also feel is the absence of that attachment to the narcissistic person. And that can feel extremely painful and overwhelming. And when it does happen, you will be driven. The temptation to reach out to them will be very, very strong, as will the temptation to reply to their messages, particularly if they start messaging you with, "I'm so sorry, I'm going to go into therapy, things are going to be different, the relationship we have is the most special one I've ever experienced." All of that can be appealing. That's what you really want. You want that special relationship. You want to be close to someone. And so, of course, it's appealing. You want to respond to those kind of messages, but you need to also be wise that this probably isn't the first time this has happened. The chances that they're telling the truth now are pretty slim. If you've been lied to before and you know this person's likely to be lying to you, why would you believe them now? So you really need to be wise, and you need to be honest with yourself about what's going on. And you also need to turn your attention to what's really important, which is the time and energy spent on you. I want you to really understand that no contact or gray rock or yellow rock has nothing to do with the narcissist, and entirely to do with you and your needs and your interests. So when you have that temptation to reach out to them, I want you to stop. I want you to take a little moment, and I want you to think, what would be more interesting right now than contacting them? What would be more important to me right now than contacting them? And even if it doesn't feel natural and you kind of have to force yourself and you have to kind of say, okay, there is a big part of me that desperately wants this reconnection, but there's another part of me that knows that it is not wise. It is not going to serve my long-term needs and interests. And so I'm not going to do it. And instead, I'm going to turn my attention to something that's far, far more important to me. And that can be anything. That can be just looking after yourself. It can be your work. It can be time with your family or your friends, whatever is important to you. I've worked with many survivors of narcissistic abuse, and I know that the early stages of no contact, or the early stages of using gray rock or yellow rock, and really breaking that strong attachment between you and the narcissistic person, are absolutely tormenting. They are crazy making, and it can be a really difficult time. So be prepared for that. Understand that that's exactly what's going to happen. It's exactly what should be happening. In fact, it's a good sign, because it's really showing you that that bond is breaking, and that you're doing the right thing. I also know that this is a major trigger point for narcissistic people too, because they sense that they're losing control. They sense that they could be losing you, and they may well up the ante in their behaviors. That could look like upping the ante in love bombing behaviors, big declarations, false promises, telling you all kinds of things, promising that things are going to be different, they're going to get therapy, all the rest of it. If you know they've said those kind of things before, let's be honest. You be honest with yourself about the likelihood that they're telling the truth now. It's pretty slim. Unfortunately, they can also be very angry with you for your withdrawal, and that can lead to an escalation in abusive behaviors, in insults to you, in criticisms of you, in spreading rumors about you. For people who are going through divorce with a narcissist, it can be an incredibly difficult time because they can become very litigious, they can make false allegations, all kinds of things can happen. So you really do need to take care of yourself. If you're in that situation, you need really good legal advice. And no contact or gray rock, being able to kind of keep that distance and keep your contact with a narcissistic person to the absolute minimum, if at all. And if you're able to use no contact, it's really in your interest to do so. It is really, really important. But nonetheless, despite the torment and despite how difficult, particularly the early stages of this can be, I also know that this is such a key time in people's recovery after narcissistic abuse. And if you really understand that this time is not about the narcissist, it is about you. It's about your needs. It's about your interests. It's about investing your time and your energy in the things that are important to you and making space for you to do that. I also know it can be such a special time. You really get to know yourself. You really establish a new relationship with yourself. You reconnect with yourself, or you connect with yourself maybe for the first time. You dig deeper and you really get to know yourself. What I'm pretty sure is you're going to like what you find. I hope this video has been helpful. Leave a comment. Let me know what your experiences have been with no contact or other strategies for managing narcissistic people. Hit the like button, subscribe if you'd like to hear more on narcissism and recovery after narcissistic abuse. I look forward to seeing you next time. In the meantime, take good care.